Well, welcome everybody. This is the Greg and Lisa show. I am Greg.
And I'm Leisa. And our topic this week is fatherless homes and the impact that it has on family, moms, kids, everybody, with
Yeah.
the dads not being present.
Spoiler alert, it's a pretty significant impact.
It is a huge impact. And, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the statistics show that there's nearly 24 million homes that are single parent homes, and the majority of those are with single
and
moms.
that's, families. There are about 300 million people in the United States. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's 24 million homes, that's a good portion of the
It
country.
really is. It really is. And, out of that number, Ohio itself has 883,000 single family homes, with the
That's,
majority being
and
mothers.
there's 50 states. So
Hmm.
that's a large portion of
It
that.
is large. In fact, they say one in three kids is in a single family household.
That about tracks with the 24 million.
Yeah, that's it's pretty sad when you look at the whole situation. It's pretty sad. And we have talked before about, the demise of the family that has caused a lot of things that are happening in the world today.
Such as this show. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well,
No, but yet, no, I mean, joking aside,
yeah.
the demise of the family has been huge, and fatherlessness is a big part of it.
It is. And fatherlessness has, comes in a different variety. It could be due to divorce, it could be due to the father walking away, it could be incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
it could be the father didn't know. They even
That
had a child.
yeah.
So there's a lot of circumstances that leads to that fatherlessness. But the National Fatherhood Initiative has provided the following information that we're going to share. But one of the biggest things that we want the dads to realize is that you are important, and that it is an epidemic of fatherlessness. And truly, dads, your kids need you. And I always say that your kids are your kids forever.
That's true.
Husbands and wives come and go, or
Mm-hmm.
relationships break up and things happen, but your kids are kids forever, and they didn't ask for the situation. They love both of you, and they want to love both of you, and they want to have both of you in their lives.
Right.
So, research shows that when a child is raised in a father absent home, they are affected in the following ways.
So yeah, greater risk of poverty, more likely to have behavioral problems, greater risk of infant mortality.
Yeah, that was really amazing, because they were talking about, in the first 3 months, there are more children that die in that first 3 months when there's not a father in the home. You
That's
wouldn't think
crazy.
about that,
Yeah.
but it does have an impact. Um, that more of the kids are likely to go to prison if they don't have a father in the home.
Yeah, they're more likely to go to prison, more likely to have, other crimes committed
Right.
as well, even
Well,
ones that don't necessarily land you in prison, but still have an impact.
that's true. And teen pregnancy is at a higher rate. They are more likely to face neglect or abuse, and more likely to suffer obesity, and they are more likely to drop out of school.
And I don't think you skipped over this one, but more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol also.
It's true. More likely to
Yeah.
abuse drugs and
And,
alcohol.
one thing I want to say about this is obviously, dads, it's important for us to be engaged and active with our kids, but a lot of this stuff can be prevented by just a child seeing you live life the right way.
Right, right. And just spending that time with them and being,
Yeah.
one on one, whether you are in the home, you could be in their lives more. Um, I never would ever stop a dad from being a dad. You can't do that. It's not,
Yeah.
up to the
Well, obviously,
children.
there is a real danger. You have to
Yeah,
account for all that. We're not legal advice. We're not counselors. We're not
right, right.
doctors. But
If there's physical
yeah,
abuse or sexual abuse, there's, legitimate reasons for dads not being in the home, but you still have to make up for that. Because I know, like, there were, in our situation, my brother and my dad stepped up, in the absence of my kids' dads,
mm-hmm.
and tried to be the pseudo dad or pseudo uncle that,
Yeah,
they needed
yeah.
to have that male role
And
model.
that's the important thing is,
Mm-hmm.
if the biological father for some reason just isn't in the picture and can't be,
Mm-hmm.
there are, other options, other avenues
Right,
for a strong male influence.
right. And there are strengths when a dad is in the home. Children with involved fathers, they have a stronger foundation, and it's better for their child's well-being. It gives them a more well-rounded emotional well-being too, but they are at lower risk when the dad is involved of infant mortality, which
Yeah.
we just kind
Yep.
of talked about. They're lower risk for a lower birth rate.
At birth weight,
Birth
and
weight, yes.
that one seems odd at first, but if you think about a lot of premature pregnancies are brought on by stress,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
certainly not having the father around is
Is stress.
stressful.
Right. Right. And in that infant stage, they get that failure to thrive
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have that love and that nurturing that they really do need. But they're also when the dad is involved, they are less likely to have emotional and behavioral issues.
Yep.
They are less likely to suffer neglect and abuse. They are less likely to suffer injury. They are less likely to suffer obesity.
Less likely to suffer poor school performance, lower risk of teen pregnancy. You know, kind of the opposite of a lot of the stuff we said on the other list. Lower risk of incarceration as a juvenile, lower risk of alcohol and substance abuse, lower risk of criminal activity, and perhaps most important, lower risk of suicide.
Right. Right. Well, and I think when you think about it, a child wants to be loved and needed,
Yes.
and they have to feel that, and they have to know that in order to thrive. So being involved, it's not only good for the kids, it's also good for the father
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
dads. And it gives them a sense of well being as well.
Yeah.
Gives them something to strive and to live for. And, when the dad is, like you said early on about living right and letting them see
Yeah.
you as the model, gives them something to look at
Yeah.
and to follow.
Yeah. Fatherhood is certainly
Mm-hmm.
work, but like you said,
Mm-hmm.
dads who are involved, men who are involved, they're happier,
Right.
better physical and mental health. In the physical health one, you might be thinking, what? But you're playing with the kids and there's blood flowing, and inevitably, mental health can help physical health because stress affects all sorts of things.
That's right. And they live longer, they have less depression, they have increased self esteem, and they're usually more active in the community or more active in civil groups. And
Yeah.
when you think about it, a lot of dads are involved with t-ball, baseball, softball, a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
sports and the things that the kids are in. And that gives them an active participant and gives
Yeah.
them something to look forward to. And a lot of times, too, they are moved to adopt a happier, healthier lifestyle, a
Yeah.
model.
And then, move to, reduce alcohol and substance abuse, find a stable job, better manage and save money, and strengthen family ties. So it really is good for everyone. I want to make sure we know, like, that doesn't mean all men are robots and have to operate exactly the same
Right.
way.
Exactly.
But,
Yeah.
that model of healthy masculinity has little to do with individual personalities and more to do with how you're taking
Just
care of your family.
right. How you're taking care of your family, what kind of a role model you're setting for
Mm-hmm.
your kids, on whether, you're a husband or, a boyfriend or,
Yep.
Whatever your relationship is, your first and foremost is your kids. Now in a Christ following relationship, your first priority is God,
Yes.
then your spouse, and then your kids. But when you don't have that marriage hierarchy, so
Yeah.
to speak, then if you don't have a relationship with their mother, you have to have that relationship with your kids.
Yeah. And when you hear, obviously God first, then spouse, and then kids, it makes it sound like kids are down there, but really the rest of the world is like way, way below all that stuff.
That's exactly
Those
right.
three are really bunched up at the top there.
Yep, they are. They are. And it's up to dads equally to fight for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to spend time with them, then you fight to spend time with them. If you want, the grandparents to have a role in their life, and you fight for that, because the kids want to see that they are important enough to be fought for,
Yeah.
and that you want to spend time with them.
Yes.
So the next section that we're going to go over, it's called Just the Facts. And these are facts that were obtained through various census bureaus, the National Fatherhood Initiative. So these are factual statements that they have done research on and have proven to be true. And the first one is infants whose dads play with them have good mental and social outcomes.
Yeah,
Okay?
certainly.
Children with involved dads, they have fewer behavioral problems in middle childhood and
And that's a
adolescence.
huge period of time.
It is because that's a struggling period as it is to go through when you hit those teenage years of junior high and going into high school.
Not to mention, like, puberty, I'll say it.
Right,
I'm not
yeah,
afraid
your
to say it.
hormones are going
Yeah.
all over
And
the
you have all this
place.
other stress, and
Right,
that's happening to you.
right. And part of your relationship with your dad and building that trusting relationship carries forward when you start looking for your boyfriend or somebody that you want to be with.
Or, you're a young woman hitting puberty and
Mm-hmm.
you're having the things happen
Mm-hmm.
when
Yeah.
puberty starts as a young woman.
Yeah.
You would think, Dad, how can I be involved in that? Just understanding. No one's
Yeah.
expecting you to know how to,
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
exactly
Right.
deal with all that, but
Right. Yeah.
show love,
Right. And understanding and patience
and
because their
just
moods are going to be all over the place.
and know
And
where you can get the
right.
info. And obviously,
Right.
mom is there to help with
Yeah. Yeah.
particulars, and vice versa for things that boys have.
Right. Right. But children whose dads read to them develop better language skills.
And that's crazy, but it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing things read in different tones of voice, hearing different,
Mm-hmm.
different words pronounced by different people,
Right.
exposing that couple different angles.
Right. And it's the verbal retention too.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it's the one on one time with dad as they're reading and they're doing something together, and it helps them to retain
Right.
better as well.
So dads are more involved with their children when moms support their involvement.
That's right. And
I
that
maybe I shouldn't have read that. That feels like a bad one for the man to read.
no, because it's important that moms allow their
Yeah,
dads if it's safe and everything is in order as far as to continue a relationship, then it's important that the moms allow the dads
yeah,
that opportunity. And we talked before when we talked about divorce and kids, the kids are not pawns. And
no,
they should be allowed to have that relationship with both parents. And the best thing that you can do is never talk negative about the other to the kids. You know, when they grow up, they'll be able to make their own decisions. And that was the way I felt. I was never going to talk bad about anybody's dad. And that, as they grew up and got older, and they would learn to understand. Because
yeah,
when kids are little, they don't have the ability to always understand
right. And
everything.
that's an important distinction
Mm-hmm.
because when you can't understand, you just end up, hating somebody
Right,
rather than, understanding the facts of what happened and being
right,
able to make your own judgment or how you want to approach that.
right, right.
But I would also say to that, aside from divorce and incarceration and things like that, that could take the dad away for one reason or another. Moms, don't let your kids think your dad is one of those sitcom dads. Those shows are funny, but
Yeah,
it's a real bad stereotype.
yeah,
We're not all dopes all the time. Everybody's a dope some of the time on
yeah.
both genders.
Yeah,
But
and everybody makes
yep,
mistakes, but it's how you come back from the
right.
mistakes that's important,
Yep,
and that's what the kids need to see.
yep,
They need to see how you recover. So, teens that, have involved dads, they do well as adults because they have learned. They have,
yep.
going through that period of time where they can
And
learn.
it's important during that period of time those teens lower levels of stress and depressive symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I could be wrong at the statistic, but I think aside from veterans, teens are probably one of the up there as far as suicide rates
They are, and even more so
goes.
since the social media has been out there and the
Yep.
pandemic, and it's really
Yep.
disheartening. It's very sad. And part of that goes back to the parents paying attention to their teens and their kids.
Yep.
I did hear a speaker on the radio that had a really good idea about the phones. And one of the rules with the phones is they're not allowed to have the phones in their bedroom.
That's
You know, they have to put them in a lockbox and put them in the kitchen and no phones at night. So that way they can sleep better. They find even the school systems that are, not allowing phones during the daytime, the kids' grades are getting better. It's like, parents need to wake
Yeah.
up and say,
Yeah.
your phone is limited.
Yeah, and that, just
Mm-hmm.
starting out with not allowed in the bedroom, that's so simple because it
Mm-hmm.
takes away a couple of hours, and giving back some more sleep time.
Mm-hmm.
But even just the time away from the nonsense.
Right, exactly. And if they're going to use their phone, they have to use it in the living room or the dining room. And it's one of those that it gives you more opportunity. And you know me, I'm a big advocate of checking your kids' phones. In this world today, if you want to know what's going on with your kids, you got to look at their phones because they're not going to tell you, and you're
Yeah,
not going to know what they're texting, what they're
yeah,
looking at, what they're doing
yeah.
until you do your
And
homework.
that's not to say kids are lying. They're going to
No.
tell you the truth, but there's just no way to even remember and articulate all that to a
Mm-hmm.
parent, even if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah. And if a kid doesn't want you to look at their phone, that's the first thing to tell you they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
Or something's going on that
Mm-hmm.
they're ashamed of, and
That's exactly
maybe they
right.
did make a mistake and they're afraid of getting in trouble. And
Yeah.
sure, maybe they'd be in a bit of trouble if you found out, but you would more, as parents, maybe would
I'd
more
rather,
so want to help with whatever that was, and then worry about the trouble stuff after it.
right, and I would much rather know on the front end than to have them come up missing or something terrible happen to
Yeah,
them because I didn't check.
yeah,
And that's why, I'll harp on that forever is that, the phones and kids is a big issue that needs to be addressed by the
yeah,
parents. But also, good co parenting improves children's growth and parenting well being. When the kids see the parents getting along and everything is, going well, that helps the kids as well. But it also helps them to see when you are having arguments or you are having disagreements, how to healthy resolve those issues.
yep.
And that's very important.
So
So,
somehow I'm going to read this one again. Sorry, ladies. When moms support dad's involvement, moms and dads are closer co-parents, and that
right.
just makes sense.
It does.
You're
Right.
more on the same page there.
Right. Because your objective is to care for the kids.
Absolutely,
And
it
that's
is.
what's important.
Mm-hmm.
But even involved stepdads help their stepchildren's mental well being. And dad's unique way of reading with their children helps children thinking and language
Yeah, and
skills.
there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of science behind that. I talked about it before. Hearing
Mm-hmm.
different things in different voices
Right.
and different styles, helps some words stick, or remembering what
Right.
certain words mean. Or
That's right. That's right. And sometimes when you are making up those voices and doing the books, they just like to see you be goofy
well,
sometimes,
yeah, I mean that's one of those things where we did the
Yeah.
laughter.
Yeah.
Laughter is the best medicine.
I
That's as
know.
valuable as any of those
It
silly
is.
scientific things about learning I just said.
That's right. That's right. So, anyways, children benefit from closeness with father figures. There is really no replacement for a father, just like there's really no replacement for a mom. You can do the best that you can do, but kids want their mom and dad. It's a natural.
Yeah, and
And
it's something people can do. Single parents can do a really good job of it,
mm-hmm.
but even they know there are limits.
Right, there is,
There
there
are
is.
limits. You are sort of bound by your
Mm-hmm.
your biological gender
Yeah,
in just the way those approaches work.
right.
But big thing here: children with involved dads are less likely to be mistreated,
Yeah, uh,
and that one's huge.
it is huge.
So involved dads also improve their children's overall emotional and social well-being.
Children living with their dads present do better in school
Yeah.
because they have somebody else looking over their homework and
Mm-hmm.
somebody that cares. Adolescent teen boys who live with their dads are less likely to carry guns and deal drugs.
That's wow.
Yeah. Yeah, look at the violence today. And it's like, that's why I said I don't think the dads realize the important role that they have to
and
play.
and parenting is certainly work, but a lot of this stuff is just living life and letting your kids
It is, and
see
even
it.
even if you didn't have a good upbringing, and maybe your male role model as a dad wasn't the best, break the cycle.
Yeah.
You know what you didn't like what your dad
Mm-hmm.
did, and you know how to change it.
Yeah,
And
and
it's just taking those steps that make it better for your kids. Do
and
a better
yeah,
job.
and no one's saying you have to be perfect, but
Right.
perhaps consider apologizing for something when you know you've done
Mm-hmm.
something wrong, or maybe you got a little too frustrated at the
Right.
thing. Kids understand that more than we think they do.
Yeah, they do.
And then lastly, involved dads reduce mom's parenting stress.
They do, and that's enough for a mom to say, "Hey, Dad, you're more than welcome to be a part of the kids' lives,
Hmm.
because it reduces their stress and their responsibility as well. It takes two people to make a baby, it takes two people to raise a baby, and it takes two people to be involved in that baby and that child's life.
Yeah.
And that's the commitment that you make. And, I look at it this way: if you don't want any kids, then, there's abstinence out there.
Oh,
There's,
well,
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely,
there's
yeah,
there's ways to handle that. So there's, in my mind, no excuse. And that's not to say there's not some issues, but it is true. That old saying, "You play, you pay." You have to have a responsibility, and you have to have the commitment, and you have to stand
yeah.
up and do what's best for your
You
kids.
got to think about it.
You
You're
do.
assisting in the creation of a human being.
That's right. You are. That's
That's
right.
it's huge.
So here's some more just the facts, and it's according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The 1 in 3 kids live without a father in the home.
Children with imprisoned fathers more likely to have depression,
Children living without their father in the home are 47% more likely to live in
and
poverty.
that's terrible.
It is. Well, it is because basically it's a single family home trying to survive. There's no additional income coming in, or they have to go on government assistance because they can't work and take care of 4 children by themselves. And if they don't have a support group or an extended family to help,
Hmm.
it's very, very challenging. But men with absent fathers are more likely to become absent fathers
Yeah, and
themselves.
that's where we
Yeah.
got somebody's got to break the cycle
Right.
somewhere.
You have to break the cycle. You have to stand up and be important. And you know what? It's never too late to try again. So, if you are a father that's had some challenges and, you really would like to be in your kids' lives, try again. Keep trying. You never give up because your kids are your kids forever.
Yep.
Women with absent fathers are more likely to have children with absent fathers.
There's another
Well, they saw
yeah.
mom do it all by themselves, and so being a single parent is no different than the way you were raised.
Yeah, it's not to say that no one's saying that you're not strong when you need two people in a household.
Yeah. You do what you have to do
It's
to
just the
make it
way it
work.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't mean that comment
Hmm.
specifically at the moms. I mean,
Yeah.
I know a lot of single dads who kind of struggle with that same
Right. Yeah.
insecurity.
Yeah. Well, because you do what you need to do to take care of your kids.
Hmm.
Regardless, that's part of it, is taking care of your kids.
Yep.
So boys have fewer behavioral problems and girls have fewer psychological problems when they have involved
And I
dads.
would say girls also
Mm-hmm.
probably have fewer behavioral problems, and
Yes.
boys also have
Yeah.
fewer
Yeah.
psychological
Right.
problems.
Yeah. And infant death within the first 28 days of life is 4 times higher for those with absent fathers than those with involved
And that's
fathers.
crazy. It's a
Mm-hmm.
shame because 28 days of life, that child can't think for they can't reason their way out of whatever's happening or
No, but
any of
if they're
that.
missing that cuddling, that
Yep.
loving, that nurturing, you don't understand how failure to thrive impacts a newborn infant, or a premature infant. And I know we've even talked about, a year and a half, one day, a year and a half to, when they miss that nurturing, you
Hmm.
never get that opportunity to get it
Correct.
back. And it has a lifelong impact on the infants and the kids.
Yep.
But there's enough statistics and proof to show that fathers are important and they have a positive mental, emotional, and social impact on their children's lives.
Yep.
And you can't replace that. And you can't change that.
Yeah.
If you're not an active dad and you're not spending the time with your children and you're not invested, your kids are going to pay for that. And, it's a decision and a choice that, you make. And as a father, sometimes we have to put ourselves second, put our kids first
Hmm.
to make sure that they are taken care of and that you are meeting their mental, emotional, and spiritual needs.
But that impact not just on the children helps themselves, helps the moms,
Right. It helps the
spouses, the
overall.
girlfriend, whoever it
Right.
might be,
Right. It's the overall picture.
because family, it's important to have that fatherly influence and the motherly influence. But let's say it's not a case of incarceration or abuse or neglect, and somebody just passed away sadly.
Mm-hmm.
which does happen, you can make these connections in other ways. So
Right.
there,
Right.
there are ways to get this, and it's
Right.
not the same, but you can still get a lot of these benefits.
Right. And, we, talked before about finding a Bible based church and, using programs within the church that, sometimes have father son things and
Hmm.
they adopt, sons and, grandsons to have that role
Yeah.
model and that influence, or, the big brother, big sisters
Yeah.
programs.
There's often
There's,
somebody you can get to go to that father daughter dance
that's right.
or
That's right.
whatever it might be, mother
Right.
son dance on the other
Right.
end of it.
Right. So, you have to be open and think outside the box to meet sometimes your children's emotional and physical and
Hmm.
spiritual needs. There are some Bible verses, and I think I want to start with the first one on Psalms 127, 3 to 5, because we have talked about this before in some of our parenting. But behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of the warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. And children are a gift from God, and they are
Hmm.
a blessing. And we need to realize that, and we need to take responsibility, and we need to participate in
Yep.
their lives. And fathers, you're important, and you need to meet the needs of your kids
Yep.
and participate in their lives.
So since you read the third one first, do we even go back to the other two? Or
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah. And we're gonna read. We got three verses or sections here, but there's so much about fatherhood in the Bible because it's super important. But
Yes.
Proverbs chapter 22 verse 6: train up a child in the way he should go, even when he is old, he will not depart from it.
On 3 John 1, 4, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. And, it is true, when you bring up a child the way they should go, when you train them and teach them, they will
Yeah.
not, depart from it.
And it's important to note that doesn't say it's always going to be perfect and there's never
Right.
going to be an argument. But what that speaks to is, if they have that faith at their core and
Right.
all those, all their good fatherhood principles, they might do something you disagree with, but at the end of the day, you've put a good foundation in there. And,
That's
you know,
right. Yeah.
far more likely they're going to end up doing the right thing at the end of whatever.
Right. And it's the foundation that counts.
Yep.
And, we love our kids. And once they leave the house, we're not in, charge of their decisions that they make. But we pray and hope that we did the best that we could do to give them that strong
Hmm.
foundation to stand on and to be productive,
Yep.
members of society and adults, and to think of others and love others. But they have free will, just like the rest of us. We all
Sure.
make our own choices for our own reasons. But there is no greater joy than to know that your children are, going to have that relationship with Jesus Christ if you
Yes.
bring them up in the church. And there are more Bible verses regarding fatherhood. We're going to cover those next week when we talk about the history of Father's
It
Day.
should be a good one.
Yeah. But, fathers, dads, you need to be the dad that, God has intended you to be with your children. And He's blessed you with the children. They
Hmm.
are a blessing. So be that positive in your child's life that they need to see. And yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's going to
No,
be
certainly not.
challenging, and you're going to learn. You're going to learn together. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to apologize, but you're going to be there.
Yep.
And so all we ask is that, the fathers, that you become or are the father that Father's Day is honoring you for,
Yeah, and
and to
yep.
be.
And it doesn't say you have to do it like the other dads do it.
No.
We often look around and think, that other person has it figured out. I could never do that. The real secret of thinking everybody else has it figured out is that actually nobody has it figured.
That's
Not
right.
even a little bit. And even in
Yeah.
the best of circumstances, parenting is hard. And I don't think
Mm.
there's probably a single parent or couple who has 100% the best of circumstances.
No, no. Parenting is challenging, and kids are challenging, and you're always going to be learning. But
Hmm.
today, there are so many resources available for you to go. And part of, being a dad and a parent is you're going to keep learning.
Yep.
Changes are happening every day. And There's always somebody to listen to that you can go to or seek
Yeah.
or find, and
Hmm.
that will help you with certain circumstances. You can
Yep.
search anything on the internet
Yep.
and find, some help if you don't know somebody indirectly.
Yep.
And if you don't have a computer, go to the library and search something that's free.
Yep.
Look at those programs. And if you're a dad that doesn't have a lot of money, find those things you can do that don't cost a lot of
And
money.
and there are,
Mm-hmm.
at least I know in, Northeast Ohio where we're at, there's tons of that stuff. I would assume
Right.
other counties and other
I'm
states
sure they
have
do.
have such programs as well.
Right. You can search what's going on this weekend here for free.
And there's
Mhm.
you'd be surprised how much free stuff there is.
Right.
How many free, trunk or treats for,
Mm-hmm.
Halloween and such. And
Yeah.
a lot of times those things are given out more than just candy at those too. So there's
Right.
really,
Right.
it's important that what you said about, keeping learning is important because, if you have your child figured out at 5 years old, they're going to turn six. you
That's
know,
right.
and I would say,
Yep.
I would even go further as to say, if you have your child figured out on June 3rd, then
Yeah.
June 4th hits, and
That's true. That's true. But
yeah,
that's one thing that we can always go to God for is we can always ask him for knowledge and wisdom and guidance. And,
yeah,
he's always going to be for us there with us 24/7. And that's one of the good things that we, when you are a Christ follower, have to rely on.
yeah,
And so, you need to check that out too. And find a good Bible based church where they have programs that you can get your kids involved in.
yeah.
So that's a huge thing as well. So you are going to be, the light in this child's life, and
Hmm.
it's up to you to shine it bright and teach them well.
Right.
So anyways, that's what we wanted to talk
Yeah,
about
before we
today.
close out, I wanted to tell everybody I picked the bell up off the floor. Can we just ring the bell real fast?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I picked it up off the floor finally. There's a lot of stuff over there in that corner of the
Yeah.
basement, so it took a little bit, but we
Yeah.
got it.
So, well, have a good week, and
Yep.
we hope that you will put a little seed thought into what you can do with your kids
Yep.
over this next few weeks before Father's Day comes.
Absolutely. See you,
So,
everybody.
have a good one.